it great that young people can help bring us forward? I sat down with two inspiring activists in Charlotte a couple weeks ago, both daughters of immigrants. They're wise beyond their years, and though they're still in high school, they're already seasoned organizers, the co-coordinators of Extinction Rebellion Youth Charlotte. As they navigate the complexities of growing up in these times, they're trying to save our planet, to save us from ourselves.
My dad was sponsored here after the Vietnam War. My mother got a green card through the process.
Your mother had to apply for citizenship. Do you have any memories of that process?
I remember so specifically, like, car rides to school. She would put in this CD and it would play an audio to help immigrants study for the citizenship test. And I remember the monotone voice so well. It's like the radio, the music that I listened to growing up.
Your parents are both Colombian and they went through a naturalization process.
To and from school, we would play the CD that had 100 questions. They had to memorize the answers to every single one of them. And I just remember that no matter what, I would just randomly ask them the questions, just wanting to make sure they would pass. Random answers will pop into my head. We the people, the Bill of Rights. I think I maybe even knew them better than they did. That was the only thing I had to focus on, while they had to focus on so many other things.
I remember We the People so vividly. In my civics and economics class, my teacher, he's always like, "Why do you know so much?" And I'm like, well, that's what I grew up on.
Your parents are from Colombia, but you were born in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yes.
So you grew up between two different worlds.
I actually went to a dual language school. At home, everyone spoke Spanish. At school, most of the students spoke Spanish. And it really wasn't until 5th grade when I transitioned schools and I moved to a predominantly white school where there's less than 1% Latinx population at my current school. And that was the beginning of me really realizing the differences and the work that needed to go into diversity, equity, and inclusion work. Charlotte is a very segregated city and it is ranked lowest in economic mobility, and that's very clear. Most people know what part of the city is predominantly white and what part of the city is predominantly BIPOC. The social barriers that are constructed within the city are still very prevalent and very obvious.
You grew up in a low-income, predominantly immigrant neighborhood, so it was normal to be bicultural, bilingual.
Yeah, it was. Everyone in my elementary school and the kids I grew up on the playground with, they all spoke another language at home and they were all immigrants. My parents, they immigrated to this country basically knowing nothing about it, and they had to learn everything in the language on their own. And I'm so grateful for my parents. I love them so much. I'm thankful for my childhood, but growing up, it was difficult. I had to translate all the government documents, any form, the forms and applications that they sent home from school. I filled that out on my own. Phone bills. That's not something an elementary schooler should be doing. And even now at 16, that's not really something that 16-year-olds should be doing either. So I had to grow up and mature very quickly, and I had to help out around the house.
It's interesting, the Southeast Asian population in Charlotte is growing very rapidly.
Southeast Asian, it's one of the biggest growing demographics in Charlotte, but racism against East Asians is very normalized. The stereotypical jokes, it's not seen as harmful or racist, which it is. So I still face those things to this day.
I really think, the idea of white supremacy and nationalism is really prevalent. Even the policies reflect all the white supremacy. And so that's why this election is so important. This is life or death. I've seen a lot of people who are starting to change their beliefs or opinions, especially in the youth, because I think they're just becoming more educated and aware without, just following what their parents say.
In 2015, you suffered an accident playing soccer.
Yes.
And you then had a botched surgery on your hip, which has led to 5 years of hell.
Basically.
Could you talk a little bit about your journey and how that has illuminated things?
Yeah. So, in the moment, I was an avid soccer player. I was traveling on the weekends. All my nights were taken up by practices. And so, that was my life. And so it was kind of, once what I considered my normal life was put to a halt, that I realized I had to find some sort of other passion that was going to fuel me the way that soccer did. I realized that activism was something that I could get involved with for the rest of my life, and that no matter my physical ability at the moment, like I could always participate, whether it be like in the hospital. I was telling everybody to go vote, whether I'm in a wheelchair, you know, there's still ways that I've found I can still go protest. Looking back, I'm not thankful for like all the pain, but in the end of the day, this is what has really, you know, led me to find this almost like a new life, a new identity that I'm super grateful for. Though it hasn't been ideal and currently still in a wheelchair, it's really helped shape who I am and what I want to do in the future.
Yeah, so going to a march in a wheelchair must be a riveting experience because you also have the danger of someone bumping up against your leg or something.
You know, that's something that's like you really have to navigate because accessibility isn't something that everybody really keeps at the forefront, especially when it comes to activism, which is something that as co-coordinator of Extinction Rebellion, like I'm really keeping in mind, and not just for like physical disabilities, but also mental disabilities.
And this business that you started at the age of what?
The idea started at 15, I was 16.
You know, I think this message talks about all of us, the food we eat, the clothes we wear.
For sure.
A lot of our lifeblood in the society is thanks to immigrants.
Yes, for sure. We have two parts to our mission, and the first one is really just the empowering of immigrants, making sure that they feel worthy, that they're heard, that they realize that they're so crucial to our community. And then, so 10% of our proceeds go to different nonprofits that either help immigrant population or just vulnerable communities.
So in 2018, there was a school shooting in Parkland, Florida. Can you talk about what that meant to be a 7th grader in North Carolina? They even called your generation the school shooting generation.
Yeah, it's sad and terrifying. Parkland for me was the first time that I had seen such like a huge mass mobilization of youth. It was inspiring seeing them on the TV, but it was also so scary going to school every day and you don't know what's going to happen. You never know who's going to come on campus, who has what. It woke something up in me. Some of the Parkland students, they started an organization called March for Our Lives, and they started posting a school walkout on March 14th nationwide on social media. So one of my friends at the time, she was in 8th grade, I was in 7th grade, she started it at our school and I helped her plan it. And I was so scared. That was the first time I'd ever like defied authority. Like when it went against the school rules, like my heart the night before, it was racing. I was so afraid of getting suspended, but at the same time, like that fear, it also motivated me. And that was the first, I guess, like activist event that I'd ever done in my life. And since then, I just haven't stopped.
How important is defying authority and being an activist?
You can't be afraid. Being an activist and stating these controversial opinions, which shouldn't be controversial, but you know, saying stuff like this to the public, anyone can hear. So it's definitely scary. I'm a goody two-shoes, like I still am. I hate breaking school rules, but I've gotten used to it. Like I'm still scared of pissing off my teachers, but when it comes to the government officials and like random middle-aged men on the internet, like it's just something that you go used to.
Being a young Southeast Asian woman in the climate change movement, you're up against a lot of white dominance.
That's why people don't view it as such a priority, because when you look at the climate crisis, you see all these white faces and you think, okay, well, it's something that privileged people can worry about. Like people who don't live paycheck to paycheck, like that's their problem because it only affects polar bears and like the ice caps, when really it's an all-encompassing issue and it compounds on other injustices.
BIPOC individuals and communities are most affected by the climate crisis. It's disproportionate. The rates are incredible and they produce the least amount of emissions.
Do you have any thoughts on Duke Energy?
In North Carolina and other surrounding states, Duke Energy holds a monopoly. They're the dominant corporation in the energy sector, and they are very, very good at greenwashing themselves to the public. And our event was to raise awareness against Duke Energy's discriminatory pollution against Black communities in Charlotte, specifically West Charlotte, where I live.
In 2019, in November of last year, Greta Thunberg came to Charlotte.
Yes.
Was it empowering to see a young activist who's famous on an international scale up close and personal?
Oh, it was wonderful. It was an incredible experience. We got together a group of like 50 students and, you know, coordinated transportation and like school permission, and just seeing such a big crowd of students from elementary school, there were some elementary school students speaking, was super empowering.
Mother Earth is burning, holy hell, the flames, cinders rain down hard
And after that strike, I've been to almost every single Friday strike since. That has been like the community that I have, and I'm super glad I'm a part of it. It's been a great experience, and I know there's a lot more work to do to create systemic change, holding our government officials accountable.
Sit and blame each other, wasting precious time. Day by day, a more divided nation. Some folks spread confusion, others tend to fires, boldly voicing righteous proclamation.
When Greta Thunberg came, it like blew up on social media. I was in the middle of math class and I saw it and I was like, I need to go. So I skipped school and I lied to my parents about going. They knew that I was skipping school that day, but they didn't know what it was for. But it was just so hard explaining what it was with the language barrier. I didn't know how to explain this in Vietnamese. So I went with my cousin and I fell in love with the passion. Like, that was the first time that I'd ever met people who were, I guess you would say, woke in Gen Z terms like me, and just the chanting of the crowd and like hearing all the speakers. I had never felt anything like that before. You know, after that one day in November, I just kept climate striking, and I still do. Extinction Rebellion Youth Charlotte, we say XR for short. XR was the dominant organization there, and I had met the co-coordinators and a couple of other people there, and I became immediate friends with them. And it's not just an organization, it's also all of my friends too.
Love and rage make progress when they are combined, waking stubborn minds with revelations. Call your friends and neighbors, what is right is right. Let us not give in to earth's damnation. Valiente juventud, nos llaman a la lucha, entre amor y rabia nos apelan. Generación de fuerza, manteniendo abiertas las puertas de la Extinction Rebellion.
The youth have a big say in it. Whether they can vote or not, they're making a big difference. Thinking about the vulnerable communities that will strongly depend upon this election, who may not have the ability to vote. And so like really exercising that right to vote and knowing that you're privileged if you can. Tu voz es importante. Nuestra comunidad es importante. Si tienen el privilegio, asegúrense de salir a votar.
Ý kiến của bạn là quan trọng.
Turn your rage into action.